Russell, thank you for being with me today on the Courage of a Leader podcast.
Thank you, Emmy. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, glad to have you here. So, Russell, we know that our world today, it's uncertain, it's ambiguous, it's complex. It definitely calls for resilience in us. So we're going to talk today about how do we intentionally develop resilience. But where I'd like to start is with your definition of resilience, because I think it has some important positioning.
Thank you, Amy. Yes. So I define resilience as springing forward with learning. Springing forward with learning. One of the reasons for that, and I know it's a play on words, I'm personally not a fan of this term bounce back.
Mm.
Is there in all of the research around resilience. So the reason that I'm not a fan of it is what I observe is most people will face into a challenging life event. They'll face into it with whatever levels of resilience they've got.
Yeah.
And then they'll say to themselves, right, I'll now bounce back, go back to how I was. There's a
Ah.
bit of a subconscious instruction to go, right, I've done that and I'll now go back. And I'm sitting there or standing there, waving my arms and going, you can't go back. We can only move forward in life. I'm really curious about, so what have you learnt from your experiences? And in the learning comes the resilience building. And so that's why I define it as springing forward with learning. And so resilient people, that's what they do. And that shifts them away from perpetually surviving and coping, and it shifts them towards thriving. So there's a bit of a concern as well that people feel like they are only being resilient when they're surviving and coping, but
Mhm.
actually, true resilience, where you've actually built it and you've got a good level of it, those individuals are thriving in a full-on, crazy, volatile, complex, ambiguous world rather than just hanging on.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about why you define it the way that you do, Russell. Because it'd be easy to just take it springing forward with learning. Yeah, that sounds great. But it's really important from a mindset perspective. There can be something
Yes.
that comes out of this not great experience that knocked us back on our heels, but we can end up in a new place on
Yeah,
our journey, on our
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and a different kind of energy to it than I gotta get back up. I gotta get back up. You fall, and then that feels like that
Yes.
energy is gonna run out. It's
Well, it will, because that's brilliantly articulated. I shall steal that for future reference. If that's all right. You know what I mean? It is about the energy levels because I get worried as well that people only see resilience as just keeping going regardless. So, how you actually behaviorally achieve springing forward with learning
yeah.
is that it's making the conscious choice because you see the value and benefit from all of life's events, the good ones and the not so good ones, of pausing.
Okay.
Now, in the pausing includes re-energizing and reflection.
Okay.
Okay, so there's lots of R words here. There's Russell, the resilience coach. There's reflection, and there's it's just the letter R comes out an awful lot in here.
All by design,
Um,
folks.
yeah, by design, absolutely, absolutely. Whatever life's experience has happened to us, if it's a really great experience, okay, we've used loads of energy, then we'll be nice tired.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to re-energize from nice tired. Being an unpleasant experience, you are not nice tired. You're a
Yeah.
bit broken. So you have to re-energize from that. So my rhetorical question for you is like, what's the difference for you? How do you re-energize from nice tired and not so nice tired? What are the things that you do? There might be a difference in there.
Uh-huh.
So from a leadership point of view, that's really important. And pausing includes chatting to a coach, chatting to a friend, going for a walk. Pausing is actually having a different conversation in your team meetings. That's a version of pausing as well. Practical, real world, how to be a resilient leader. It's like, so team, we have had an experience recently. Let's pause. Let's have a chat about it. Let's understand what worked really well for us in this experience about behaviorally and mindset and our levels of resilience and our adaptability and our learning and what didn't work well for us and how can we take those learnings forward
Yeah.
into the next experience that we have around it. So actually, we could learn from this and face into the next challenge differently, or actually whether we do actually view it as a challenge
Hmm.
might change. Because if we've learned, we
Yeah.
go, oh,
Yeah.
this has happened to us before. Oh, we know how to deal with this. So we're not seeing it as a frightening thing. We know we can face into it. So if the negative thing in the past, we learn from it, go, oh, actually, we know what to do. We feel better about it. I'm not actually viewing it as yet another, oh my God, experience. It's like, oh, okay, right, we can do this. We can
Yeah.
face into this.
We can collectively change the perspective, the mindset on that type of work with that
Yes.
kind of acknowledgement. Look at what we learned. Look at what we're now capable of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
absolutely.
seeing that all of the springing forward with learning can create momentum.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the re-energizing, I think this was a really nice distinction that you were making, Russell. I've called it, I'm happy tired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Happy
the
tired. Yeah.
nice tired and the knackered. Can you give us some examples of what might be? I mean, obviously, it's very individual, and what re energizes me might be very different for you, Russell. But where do people look?
When I work with clients, this is where I bring in the whole strengths-based approach. So
Nice.
I think in the US, I think you're all familiar with StrengthsFinder, and in the
Uh-huh.
UK, I use StrengthScope.
Okay.
So there's a real crossover between them. So this is about, as part of how you build your resilience, it is absolutely understanding what your natural energizers and strengths are. So strengths are your natural energizers. That on the strength scope, there's 24 of them, and you do a psychometric, you get your significant seven. So three of my significant seven are collaboration,
Uh-huh.
strategic mindedness, and developing others. Okay,
Those
so
guys.
those are my, that's when I'm at my bestest best. So there's a strong likelihood that when we're in nice tired, it's because we've been playing to our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's like I've been doing the thing that naturally energizes me, and it's naturally really good. Yeah, and there's critical thinking, there's detail orientation, there's creativity, there's flexibility.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're nice tired, it's more than likely you've been able to use those. Okay, and you can use them too much. So when you're knackered, it's
Yeah.
more than likely that you have not been playing to your strengths.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing that I'm energized by the least is detail.
Mm.
Okay. So I can do detail. I can
Mm-hmm.
do it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you ask me to do it, it's like my bubbles burst.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into the knackered phase because it's like I've had to do an awful lot of detail. The analogy is a boat analogy of like there's a hole in my boat and water is coming in, the sea's coming in. And when I do detail, it's me trying to use a bucket to get the sea out of my boat.
Okay.
So who's going to win, the sea or my bucket?
At some point, the sea.
Sea, yeah. So it's more than likely, in a work sense and a life sense, that I am a bit broken. It's because in those moments, you've not managed to harness your natural strengths, or you've had to spend lots of time doing things that you really find de-energizing. So,
Yeah.
recovering from having played to your strengths is different from you going, I am properly broken. I am a bit battered and bruised.
Oh,
My starting point is I might just have to look at the wall and dribble. I just need to
yeah. I
have
can
that
see,
moment.
Russell, that it would just help to be able to acknowledge, no wonder I'm tired.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was not energizing strength work for me. So I guess
No,
that's a takeaway I'd love every listener to have is first of all, know what your strengths are, those things that you're good at and energize you. That was
yeah.
important about how Russell was talking about them. And then we can see how much have I been engaging in my strengths lately. No wonder I'm exhausted from this day. And
Yeah.
then what do we do about it, Russell? I mean, is it a nap? Is it doing our hobby? Is it
Yeah, it's
some of those
so
pauses, like go take a walk?
it's all those things. And just an additional thing about why the strengths thing is so important to
Yeah.
resilience is because when you play to your strengths and understand them, they build natural resilience and natural confidence. So
Mm-hmm.
they're all interconnected. And confidence is one of the specific dimensions of being resilient. So there's just so many exponential benefits about you taking this strengths-based approach. And so from there, it is, yeah, so it's what re-energizes. It might be a hobby. It's a little bit as well of understanding whether you're on this sort of extroversion, introversion. Are you re-energized by others, or are you re-energized by your own sort of
Yeah.
internal solar panel, you know? And but then it's a case of, even in the workplace, you might go, actually, so I've been working on a particular project which for whatever reason, I'm not managing to play to my natural strengths. So, gosh, I am tired. Well, and there might be, do you know what? There's another project I'm working on where I am. So, right, I'll go work on that project because I'm being more of me. That will be another way of doing it as well. Because there's so many different ways in which you can re-energize yourself, because it comes back to your natural strengths. It's like this, just an enormous list because it's individual.
Yeah.
The other thing that people can do is maybe both reflect back and look forward on
Mm.
when they were most recently energized in the workplace.
Yes. And how do I get more of that?
Yeah, and how to get more of that. And you go, actually, do you know what? If I reflect back on my week, Wednesday and Thursday, oh God, yeah, fantastic, loved it. Monday and Friday, oh God, oh, they were horrible.
Long days. Yeah.
Right, let's reflect and go, all right, so going forward, when I view next week, where am I excited, or where do my energies go? Or do you go, do you know what? And there's nothing, it's not until Friday next week that the thing that I enjoy doing is happening. Oh gosh, Monday to
Yeah.
Thursday. Right, I need to change that. It's about harnessing it day to day,
Yeah.
essentially, is the best way for you to be re-energizing yourself all of the time.
Yeah. We have to bring that awareness and then see how we can intentionally shift to more strengths. Because I'm thinking, Russell, someone listening might think, oh, well, I'm doing work that doesn't use my strengths, but that's part of my job. I have to do it. Like, what are you talking about? Use more of my strengths. But I'm thinking about one of your strengths is collaborating. Well,
Yes.
if this is a thing that where like I could do it solo,
Yes.
but could I create value added ways to bring other people into the work so that you are actually having an experience of collaborating, right? Can we talk
Totally.
through this part together? Or can we review this piece together? Like, how do you do it different ways to bring in your strength?
Totally. And this is, so support network is one of the dimensions of being resilient as well.
Ah, yes, okay.
A resilient leader builds a resilient team. So knowing your own strengths and actually know your own people's strengths, but actually support them to go discover each other's strengths. So every time you've got a piece of work that you've got to do as part of your roles and responsibilities, it is absolutely chatting to other people to sort of go, I'm working on this. Who's energized by that? Who's excited? Or I'm struggling with this, and it's like, I'm not feeling it. And somebody else might be sitting there and going, oh God, if I could, whew, if I could get involved in that, that'd be brilliant. You go, ah, right. So it isn't the fact that you abdicate that work to somebody else. It's a case of, this is my responsibility because it's my job role, but actually I have harnessed your strengths. And then it's a case of, there's some reciprocity in there, because then you do need to say something. So what can I do for you? Now,
Yes.
all of this, how I'm talking about this, is actually coming from one of my strengths, the collaboration strength. So some people listening now don't have the energy for collaboration, because they'll be listening and going, I'm not driven by working with others, Russell. It doesn't naturally energize me. So that's where you have to see the value and the benefit in it for you to do the behavior change, to sort of go, okay, so I'm not a natural collaborator, but I understand collectively, for me to build my own and the other team members' resilience, there are times I've got to engage with others.
Okay.
You know,
And so
and so
support network is an aspect of this, regardless of our
yeah,
strengths, regardless of our preference for introversion or extroversion.
absolutely,
Like,
yeah,
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 what
it's
is your
part of it.
support network? Build your awareness around that and build that support network.
Yeah, it is. We all need one. We are social creatures, and it's not about the size and the scale of the support network. It's just every individual is just have one, create
Yeah,
one, nurture it.
yeah,
It doesn't matter how big or small or medium it is. It's just like, it's one of the dimensions of being resilient, is having a support network that enables you, essentially.
yes, yes. Brilliant, Russell. Let me pause us here. I want to tell listeners more about you.
Okay.
Russell Harvey, the resilience coach, is a dynamic and engaging leadership coach and facilitator, public speaker, managing director, non executive director, podcaster, and radio host. With over
Wow.
20 years of experience in learning, leadership, and organization development, Russell's areas of specialization include resilience in our modern world of uncertainty and ambiguity, executive coaching and leadership development, talent management, career coaching, facilitation, change leadership, and creativity.
Golly.
Yeah, Russell's facilitation style, you've heard it, is engaging, empathetic, and pragmatic. He challenges people to think and reflect on their behavior and encourages them to rediscover their mojo. Russell has a depth of qualifications that include certificates in training, education, and coaching. And in addition to his work with clients, Russell is the chair of governors of a local primary school and a volunteer with Leeds Youth Authors. Glad to have you with us today, Russell.
Thank you. Gosh, that's like you forget all the things that you've done in life, and when that's played back to you, going, "Is that me? Did I? All right, yeah, okay, I did all those things."
It must be springing forward with learning, Russell.
I am trying my best, Amy. I am trying my best. Absolutely,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
It's also interesting to note in there of like along the way, there's been some bumps. So part of that is actually being made redundant 6 times.
Okay.
So people sometimes listen to sort of say, "Oh, everything's all right. Well, you've had a great life." I go,
Oh, no
"Well,
wonder you've sprung forward with learning.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah." But there, other reasons about how come people should listen to us or engage with us. It's like, yeah, there's been some challenges along the way as well. I've had to find my path, and that's part of the story as
Yeah.
well, essentially.
Yeah. Anything that you want to share with us about what you've personally learned in dealing with
From
those
the
jobs?
from all of this, it is very much what I've really learned is find your purpose, essentially.
I was going to ask about that other dimension. This is a perfect segue. Yep. Okay. Go
So,
ahead.
so out of all of that 20-year history and what drives you, there's a story behind how the resilience coach came about. And one of the dimensions of being resilient is having a purpose. So I have one. And as a result of all of that explanation and the 6 redundancies, so by the year 2025, I want to positively affect 100,000 people. And
Yeah.
right now I'm up to about 77,012-ish,
Well
you know?
done.
So the positively affect is when an individual, a client, somebody that if I'm doing a speech or I'm facilitating a session or has listened to a podcast and they go, "I've learned something.
Mm,
I've got something. I've had a light bulb moment. I've had a realization moment." They go from confused face to aha moments.
mm.
When I see that happening in front of me, it positively affects me. It gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside my stomach. And I do it for a living. It started the birthplace of it was in 1996 in Hong Kong. That was the kernel for all of
Okay.
that. I was teaching English to Hong Kong Chinese people off the street in 4-hour English lessons because I was traveling around the world for a year, and some magic was happening in the room. And I was going, "I don't know what this is, but I love it and I want to do it for a living, but I don't know what to call it." And it transpired later it was people learning. And I
People
think that probably really feeds into why I define resilience as springing forward with learning, because when you learn, that's when behavior change happens. That's when you build your confidence, and that's when you have more courage, Amy.
like you say, it's all connected, Russell. Right. So, how do people distinguish their purpose, Russell? I call it leadership legacy, right? What's the purpose of our leadership? What do we bring to every interaction, every project, every relationship? I'm imagining the answers that this can be worded and felt an infinite number of ways, right? Because it's very personal. Tell us the range or what our purpose might sound like.
Okay, so it has got something to do with your value system.
Yeah,
So you do need to understand, just have some inkling of what your values are.
important to me. Yeah.
It's also, it is about looking back on your life to date. It doesn't matter how old you are, and asking yourself the question around what have you done that's made you feel proud?
Hmm.
Okay, so you either led something or just involved in something or a team member. It's just what gave you a feeling of pride. And that will start to give you some clues about what makes you tick, what your strengths, your skills, your capabilities are. And these things then they give you meaning and they get you out of bed each day and they motivate you and they drive you and they give you some grounding essentially when you feel like things are all at sea. Revisit your values and your strengths and your skills and your meaning, and then that goes into a purpose. So without having, it's not about having multiple purposes, but I also then when I work with clients, I ask them, very similar to you, I go, so what's your leadership purpose? What's your reason? And you can think about it in all sorts of different ways of when you leave the room, what do you want people to say about you? Or if you ask for feedback, what's the feedback that you would like to have about who you are as a leader and what you've given and what you're doing for them and what your intention is, essentially. What are you here to do, as a result of being a leader? And then that should energize them.
Yes.
Yes. So once again, they get their energy
Yeah.
from their purpose, essentially. So that's
I
how
invite
mine.
all listeners to define your purpose. I don't think that this has to take a long time, right?
No,
Some reflection. I mean, you mentioned it's in your strength area, it's where you have passion, and it's where you have this feeling of pride or motivation or meaning, right? Where all of that is intersecting. That's your purpose, and put it in your words.
absolutely. Yeah, totally. Put it in words,
Yes.
and that's your guiding light, for want of a better principle. It's like what's inside you, essentially. So when all around might feel as though it is completely full on, but you're sort of saying, actually, I can thrive because I understand within this, actually, I am delivering, aiming for, achieving my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so how you then think and feel about your current circumstances, that will be different because at the heart of resilience is our attitude.
Yes.
All aspects of this dimensions I'm talking about resilience are on the resilience wheel that I talk about, which is built upon research. And there's 7 aspects to it, and I've referred to most of them so far in our conversation, but they're all interconnected, essentially. Um,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
was going to ask you to make that direct connect for us between a purpose and resilience, and I'm hearing it has to do that. That's acknowledging that self-fulfilling that is springing us forward when we know that we're fulfilling our purpose and we're making a difference day to day and we're in our sweet spot, right? I mean, that's just automatically propelling us forward.
it is most definitely. So it's choosing a way for people listening now to make the decision to engage with their resilience. And developing their resilience week by week, day to day, in a way they find interesting and enjoyable. It's not about any additional chore on top of their to-do list. That's
Mhm.
absolutely not where I am coming from. It's most definitely about actually how can we make your to-do list very, very different. But
More
actually,
energizing. Yeah.
so one of the things is to engage with your resilience wheel. So attitude, purpose, confidence, adaptability, support network, storytelling, and energy. There's
Yeah.
7 bits to it essentially,
Yeah.
and they're all interconnected. And you can develop each one, and as a result of that, you will be growing your resilience day to day. So in your learnings, it's a case of one of the many reflective questions you can ask yourself is in my recent activities as a leader or just a human being going through life, it's like how much have I been meeting my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
or how much have I been pulled away from my purpose,
Okay.
and go, all right, so when I'm in my pauses, in my re-energizings and my reflections, I'm going, actually, these suite of things that I was doing, these behaviors or the things I got involved in, they were aligned to my purpose. And
Yeah.
actually, these weren't. Ah, okay. So how do I make sure that I do less of one and more of the other? And that will define how you wake up each day, believing and feeling comfortable and confident that you can face into life's challenges.
Yes, very well said. So, for listeners, I want to tell you today, I want to point out that we have talked about the dimensions of confidence, support network, purpose, And then my last question for you, Russell, is about the heart of this. You say attitude is at the heart of this. So I'm gathering with intentionally raising our awareness around the things that you've mentioned today and intentionally making shifts in our practices, in our behaviors, and how much we're using our strengths and how often we're playing to our purpose. That will shift organically our attitude. But Russell, what
Totally.
if I just wake up and like I got a crappy attitude? I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I know it, right? I'm someone who's aware and I'm like, oh man, these are not empowering thoughts to start the day with. Anything for bad attitude in the moment?
So, it's sometimes it's hard to do, but the logical, factual answer, Amy, in that moment is self-compassion.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's all right to have thoughts about today, really not feeling it, and I'm in a met place, and I don't really want to face into the world. So
Yeah.
acknowledge, that that's what's happening, and let yourself know that that's okay. The artfulness in that is sometimes you need to lean into it and face into it, but then you do need to find a way to make sure that you're not wallowing
Yeah.
in it. So
Yeah.
step one, recognize it, and self-compassion. It's okay to feel like this. I
Yeah.
might just lean into it for a while and actually just be frustrated, but then it's a case of how long am I going to hold on to this?
Yeah. I love that your immediate response was self-compassion, Russell. I think that's so important. And the lean in and see if there's anything to learn. I mean, sometimes we wake up with these concerns or these thoughts or this feeling of meh because there's something there. There might not be. There might not be.
Yeah.
We're human beings and it's complex and there's a lot going on in here. But yeah, lean in, don't wallow, and
The other
maybe you
thing,
can
the other
re-energize.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I was getting enthusiastic there.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
other thing that for listeners is I'd really like to talk about the word optimism,
Mm,
just because this is part of the answer to your question as well. Because one of the things I'm concerned about is toxic positivity and
okay.
toxic resilience. So I'm not coming from the space in the resilience world of like we sort of say, okay, yeah, it's all a bit rubbish and terrible and nothing's working. You've just got to be resilient and not coming from that space. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but how we do get to feeling positive is thinking about this word optimism first.
Okay.
So, optimism is grounded in reality. So, just linking back to if I'm waking up today with a really terrible attitude, it's like, well, that's the reality.
Yeah.
I acknowledge the reality that we're in, and I haven't put any judgment to it.
Okay.
So just require practice this. So ground in reality. And these are the conversations that you can have as leaders with your peers and your team. You've really got to have some great artful conversations about what's the reality of our situation. If it's big and horrible and scary, then we need to go, okay, it is. And we acknowledge it. And there's no like ostrich head in the sand type thing. We just go, we understand our reality. Then the next thing you do in all circumstances is you start to reflect either individually or collectively on what are my strengths?
Mm, right.
What's my skills? What's my past experiences? What's my capabilities? What's my general levels of resilience? What's my current mindset and attitude when this works well? And go, okay, I'm starting to feel better. What's my purpose? What's my stone of life? What's my guiding light?
Yeah.
Right. I have now got genuine feelings of hope,
Yeah.
real feelings of hope, not pretend ones. And do you know what? I am now feeling more positive about the situation. So
Yeah.
how you get to positive is to go take the optimism approach,
Right.
essentially.
Which starts with a stop at reality.
It does take a real skill set to have that conversation and guide it, because there's an awful lot of empathy that
Yeah.
is required in here. There's a massive amount of emotional intelligence that's required to be able to hold this conversation to go, we need to talk about the reality of where we are, and we've got consensus that the reality is not good. So we need to hold that. We need to be compassionate about that. We need to face into it. We need to allow people to talk about their thoughts and their feelings
Yes.
and not let it get into an inappropriate negative downward spiral. We have to
Sure.
be
Sure.
comfortable
Yeah.
actually going, do you know what? This is a difficult space, you
Yeah.
know, and acknowledge that. And then we need to gently start to guide it towards
Here's
springing
our strengths.
forward. You can't necessarily do that all in one 10-minute conversation.
I'm hearing you can get overly negative and you can get overly positive because we've all had the colleague or the leader where we're trying to say our concerns about what we're up against or whatever, and they're like waxing positive and it'll be great, it'll be this. So I'm hearing have the real conversation about the
Yeah.
reality, about the circumstances, about the project, about the upset customer, about whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then, okay, we've got that out. Let's have the real conversation about who we are, how we can leverage our strengths, what we're committed to inside of this, right? Like, what's our purpose,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
on. I love that. That's a really wise place to end. Russell, thank you for your time today and
Thank
for
you.
sharing your understanding and parts of your model around resilience that I know you have taken decades of research and study to build up.
Absolutely. No, you're welcome. I love chatting with you. Thank you for holding the conversation so well.